Hello everyone, what I have for you today is a way for you to have a softer shoe. Many times we buy our shoes, such as Vibram XS Edge, and we wonder if it would be better to improve the performance of this shoe when we have a slabby route. And this all started while I was looking at a video with some car parts being softened with WD-40, and I noticed that even better than WD-40 was something called Wintergreen, which is a massage oil. In the car part video, the YouTubers, they propose softening rubber parts by using Wintergreen oil, and I decided to try first in this small setup where I have a few different small pieces of rubber, and as I try with these 4 different pieces of rubber, I noticed that the performance, depending on the amount of wintergreen that you use and depending on the exposure that you have for wintergreen, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, the rubber becomes softer and softer. As I mentioned before, I am a mechanical engineer and I do have a durometer that is capable of measuring different shore levels, the hardness of rubber. And rubber, in reality, can be sticky, but when you're working on the outdoors, when you're working in a bouldering gym, chalk usually penetrates through small pores and the stickiness might go away, but the capacity to deform when it's pressed against something, so for example pressed against a crimp, pressed against a hold, is what keeps you in place. And in the case of slabby routes, you have the friction from that slabby route to keep you in place. Initially, I decided to measure how stiff my tarantulas are. These tarantulas, they were resoled with Vibram XS Edge. And you can see that our stiffness is closer to 70, sometimes going as low as 68, 67. When we look at the way that the human foot works, we have more pressure in the ball, in the football, in the ball in the front, not in the heel. And that's exactly the part that we use when we're smearing. So I decided to create a perfect shoe by having that specific part a little bit softer than the rest. I first decided to isolate that part with a little bit of glue gun so that I could create a puddle where the wintergreen would stay and penetrate the rubber. And once I finished this procedure, I decided to add wintergreen and leave it for a few days. When you're applying glue, be careful to keep the glue as close as possible to the rubber. It's not going to be bad for your rubber, but if you leave small holes, the wintergreen will pass through those and then you're not going to have that puddle and the effect will not be maximized. It's okay to touch the wintergreen with your hands. After all, it's a massage oil. It's just that they have a very strong minty smell. And in the beginning I was doing these experiments on my living room, but then I just changed from a balcony because it was just too strong. If you like the minty smell, then good for you. After 2 days of this experiment, I decided to remove the glue, and you can see that the wintergreen not only makes the rubber softer, but also the glue from the glue gun becomes a little bit soft. And once I removed the entire glue, I cleaned a little bit. I also took my durometer and I went to test how it changed on the outside, which was the outside part that I have my Vibram XS Edge in its official form, which is around 70, 68 shore A. When I do a similar test with the results from the inside, I found that the hardness that I have in this rubber after having 2 days of wintergreen on it decreased in almost 10 points. And I tried in different places also, and you can see similar results. So that's great, and I wonder if that that could be a feature for companies to think about. From the very beginning, when they're developing shoes, they could use edge in one part, and they could also use grip 2 on another one. One thing to pay attention to is to be very careful with glued parts, the natural glue that your shoe has, because Wintergreen will also dissolve those too. That's why it's important to have a very well applied glue puddle.